Hey lovelies, it's MLP with Lovely Lulu Designs, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you how to properly spray paint a tumbler. I'm going to be sharing with you how to get even coverage and how to prevent getting any drips. So before we get started with the actual demonstration, I just want to talk to you guys about a couple of things. The first thing you need to do is you need to be familiarizing yourself with your spray paint. So for today's video, I'm going to be using a Premier Primer Interior White. I also will often use Rust-Oleum 2 times paint and primer, or just the primer. It doesn't really matter. This one is available at Canadian Tire and it's a little bit less expensive than the Rust-Oleum, so I was there, so I grabbed a whole bunch of these and I was there last time. You want to familiarize yourself with the label because it's going to tell you the painting conditions, it's going to tell you where you should be doing this, it's going to tell you how you should prepare, it's just going to tell you how long it takes for this to dry to the touch, and it's going to tell you when it's your right recoat times, and that might vary from spray paint to spray paint. So for this one, it's going to be dry to the touch in 20 minutes, and they tell you to recoat within 1 hour. So somewhere between 20 minutes and 1 hour, I will be putting on another coat of spray paint, because what I like to do is I like to do thin layers. That's going to help prevent those drips that I was talking about earlier. Also, the temperature of where it is that you are going to be doing your spray paint is going to affect how your spray paint is going to react. I've seen people have issues with their paint cracking, some people who are applying the right amount of paint and it's dripping, and that's just meaning it was probably done in not ideal temperature conditions. So if you have things too cold or too hot, predominantly too cold is our problem here in Canada. I will not store my spray paint in my garage because my garage does get quite cold. So I'm always sure to store my spray paint in my basement, where I know it's going to stay a decent room temperature, and then when I'm spraying, it's going to be the right temperature to use. Another important step that you need to make sure that you do before you start spray painting is you have to make sure that you're properly prepping your tumbler. And if you haven't already had a chance to check out my video on how to properly prep a tumbler, I'm going to put a link on it here. But basically, this is my tumbler here. It is, as you can see, very well sanded. It is very dull. It is not shiny finished surface anymore. This enables the spray paint to have some teeth to grab onto, and it's going to give you a much better adhesion, so you're not going to have to worry as much about dripping when you're spray painting, but more importantly, after this is a completed tumbler, it's going to be grabbing on really well to that base of that cup, and when people have accidents with their cups, it's going to have less likely of a chance of it getting completely damaged in a drop. Maybe you'll have a crack or something, but the odds of it popping right off is going to be a lot slimmer. And then the last thing you're going to want to make sure that you have with you when you're spray painting is going to be your respirator. And you're going to want to make sure that this respirator is going to be protecting you from volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. If you haven't yet watched my video on health and safety with epoxy, that also relates to spray painting and to acetones and the other chemicals that you might be working with when you're making your tumblers, you might want to check that out. So here's the link for that one there as well. So you're going to want to make sure that you are wearing this when you're spray painting as well. So I just wanted to mention a couple more things to you guys. One of them is going to be about shaking your can. You want to make sure that you shake your paint really, really, really well before you use it. That's going to make sure that it's properly mixed, which is also going to help you with drips. Another thing is going to be the technique I want to talk to you about. So when you are spray painting a tumbler, often what I see people do when they're spray painting is they're doing this back and forth motion, and they're doing it from the wrist. And the problem with doing it from your wrist is that what ends up happening is you're only concentrating your spray when you're pointing directly at the cup. As you move your wrist this way, you're going to be spraying off to the side, and the same thing here. So the problem with that is it means you're not going to get even coverage. So when you are moving your spray paint can, what you want to avoid doing is using your wrist, and what you want to do instead is you want to use your arm. And this is going to keep the same concentration going across the cup. And it doesn't matter what direction you're spraying your cup. You can spray your cup from side to side, you can spray your cup up and down. If you're doing a swirl, you can spray your cup on the swirl, as long as when you're doing it, you are making sure that your wrist is staying straight and that it's your arm that you're moving and not the wrist. I'm going to give you guys an example of that now. The next thing I want to mention is that thinner coats are better. So you want to do thinner multiple coats if you have to over one thick coat, because when you have that thick coat, it's going to be too much. So the first spray I do, especially with a new can, is I spray it out into the nether. And the reason why I do that is, first of all, I want to make sure that my top here is not clogged. And the other reason why I do that on a new can is because I want to make sure
that it's the right color, because sometimes, very rarely, sometimes these are not labeled correctly, and that would really, really suck if you're working on a project and all of a sudden you're spraying it the wrong color, especially if you were on a clear coat. So here we go. So I'm going to be doing those straight lines. I'm going to be keeping my wrist straight. I'm going to be moving my arm only, and I'm going to be keeping it a proper distance, and I'm going to be doing thin coats. So that there is what my cup looks like after my first coat. You can see all that overspray. That was what this mask was for, to protect my lungs. So I'm going to take this inside. I'm going to let it dry for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to come out and I'm going to do another coat. Okay, so I'm back now to do that second coat. So again, I'm going to make sure that I shake my pan really, really well to make sure that paint is all mixed. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do one spray out into another to make sure that the can is not clogged. And then I'm going to do my second thin coat. Now, the first video I showed, I was doing a continuous spray. You do have, you use more spray up when you do that. You can also do short bursts. You will use less paint when you do that. However, it is a little bit more tiring. So I'm going to show you guys the short bursts now, so you kind of have an idea of how that looks. So it's just doing it like this. And then I will rotate my cup. So I'm just building my color. Okay, so that's after 2 coats. So this one is going to need a third coat. So I'm going to come back out in another 20 minutes and I will do the final coat of white. But you can already see that I have no drips. I have nice even coverage so far, but it still needs one more coat to fully saturate that tumbler. Guys, last coat, you know the drill by now. I'm going to shake my pan really, really well. I'm going to spray out into the nether, make sure it's not clogged. And then I'm going to take my tumbler, I'm going to keep my wrist straight, and I'm going to go back and forth. Okay, and that is a perfectly base coated tumbler with no drips. Now your technique will remain the same if you are going to be doing an ombre, if you're going to be doing a stenciling, if you're going to be doing a swirl. You always use this technique. It's universal, and if you use this and you follow these instructions, then you should not have an issue with drips. So there you go. And then also one last thing at the very end. When you're done painting, you're going to want to put your can upside down. You're going to want to spray out, and that's just going to clean your nozzle. It's going to help avoid any clogs in the future for your paint.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, please be sure to leave a thumbs up for this video. Also, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my little logo above. If you're new to my channel and want to check out some of my previous videos, you can always check the link right here. And please be sure to tickle that little notification bell so you're informed of any future videos that I post. Thanks, guys.